Hi there everyone, welcome to this video. It's getting towards the end of March now, so we're getting very close, we hope, to the easing of lockdown restrictions. Obviously up until now it's been quite quiet. Walks locally, walking around town, walking up into the local woods, but we really would like to be back out in the van and back on the road again. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that that comes about. And means in terms of videos I've been putting on the channel recently, it's more about trips we took in the past, mostly towards the end of 2020 when the lockdown restrictions were lifted, particularly Cornwall, either day trips or campsites or other things we did while we were away and on the road. And it got me thinking whether it might be interesting to just show you how I put those videos together. So I thought it might be useful because I've been putting videos together now for about a couple of years, done 70 odd now sitting on the channel. So I've learnt a bit about the process and how it works best for me. So I thought I'd show you firstly about organising content and audio in advance of putting a video together, and then a bit about the actual process using iMovie and the content I've been able to pull together for that. So this will be a very short section of video that I'm actually putting together, but it'll be based on a trip we took back in 2020. So let's just start with the video content. And you'll see on here what I've done is to put all the content. This is about Sennen, which we visited back in 2020 when lockdown was still eased, we could get out and about. And what I've done is taken them from photos and put them into a separate album entitled Sennen. Not necessarily in the order that they will appear in the video, but just making sure I've got all the content. And then if I close that down and then we go into iMovie, what I'll do is click on create new and create a new movie. And when you open up iMovie, you get my media, audio, titles, backgrounds and transitions. We'll be using most of those today, but we've firstly got to load the media. And we'll start with all my albums, and you'll see top left here is the Sennen album. So if I click on that, I should probably point out I'm using a mouse. I find it a lot easier to put video together with a mouse rather than all the commands on the keyboard. And you'll see that all the various content is here, but as I said, it's not in the order I want to put it in. You'll also notice up the top here, I've got one video that's in the wrong orientation. Sometimes that happens either on the GoPro or the iPhone. This is all GoPro footage, I think, but I can sort that out in iMovie, no problem. So along in the timeline here is where you start putting in the video content. So what I tend to do is try and work on firstly establishing shots. So this is looking down from the top car park at Sennen Cove, and that would be a good establishing shot. So I'll drop that in first, and you'll see it's arrived here. Probably worth noting, here is a little slider which if you turn it to the left it concentrates that down, and if you move it out to the right you get a lot of video to work with, which is a lot easier when you're actually looking to edit through the video. So that will be the first opening shot, and I'll slide along then to the end of that. I've got another piece of Sennen Cove here, or the Cove, the beach. So what I'll do is put that on there as well, because I might need a chunk of that. Move that along, get that to the end. And now we need to get ourselves down from the car park. Now I've got on here two pieces of video. This one walking down from the top, and then another one with the poor orientation a bit further down. So what I'll do is drop that one in, and then drop in this one. And while I'm doing this, as you see, it's lopsided. If I go to this particular icon headed cropping, but in there is also the ability to rotate. So I think if I do a left rotate, yep, that's come back now to the right way around. So that will stay like that. Then we'll get down into town, and this particular shot is one of the first you get once you get down towards the beach. It's on the footpath by the top of the beach, so I'll put that in. We'll then have a look further and see what else we've got. We've got this one, which is a look along from that point down Sennen Cove, so I'll add that on, and then we will need to get back up because we want to go up to the other side of the town. So this one has Caroline walking that way, so we'll drop that in. Then we need to walk up the hill. Now let's just do a little bit in the town. So we've got these two shots, one of the harbour and then one of the little boat there. So I'm going to put those two in just to look a bit more around the town. Then we'll go up away from the town. I've got that shot, that one and that one, which is quite good because you can see more of the building, so we'll drop that in. And then see what else we've got. That's quite good because that looks further round to the left, bit of pan there. Then I've got a couple here which are the ones I was thinking about, where we're walking, or Caroline's walking up to the lookout point there, so I'll put that one in, this one in, then we walk up to the top, drop that one in, and then we look over the top, which I think is this one. Yep, so we'll use that as the final shot. So you'll see now we've got all the video in, and this blue line under here is the audio that was recorded at the time, some of which I'll use, some necessarily I won't use. So let's scroll back to the beginning. Now, as this is going to be mostly a non-talking piece of video, I'm going to go straight to thinking about the audio I want to put on. Now, in the Apple library for music, I have got a YouTube folder where I've basically put in here all of the songs and pieces of music which I've sourced and I've thought might be useful for a video in the future. It's a mixture. There's the YouTube audio library, which I've used quite a lot of, but more recently I've also signed up for Epidemic Sound, so the latter pieces are Epidemic Sound, and found that there's plenty there, plus both of them have sound effects which can be quite useful if you want to add a little bit of sound effect. So I've got all these in here. So back in iMovie, if I go on to audio, those will also appear here. So I've had a look round and wondered what sort of ones I might use, and it's quite interesting how music can totally change the flavour of a video. So what I might do is use one for this particular example, and I'll re-edit it again with some other music just to see how different that comes out. So I think this was the one I was proposing to use. So that's quite a slow but not too ponderous, and it's reasonably happy. So I'm going to stop that, and again with the left click on the mouse just pull that down and drop it into there. Now I like to do this in this stage so I can now start to think about how I'll use the various elements of the video to go with the music, looking for places where there seems to be a natural change in the music which would prompt me to change the video, or just using various techniques as you go along. So at the moment I've got untouched, unedited footage here with the music, so we'll just run that. So I think the music works quite well, but the video is a little bit wobbly as I was walking down the van. So one of the ways to avoid too much wobble is to slow the video down, which I'll do in a second. But firstly, I think what I'll do is just start the video a little bit later on to avoid that wobble and just include the wing mirror there. So if you see where I've stopped it, there's a white line here. If I left click to hold that line and then right click, there's a number of things I can do. One of those is split clip. If I do that, it highlights this particular piece on the left and there's the rest of the video on the right. So if I click on that and then delete that just with the delete button on the keyboard, I get a start there. Now sometimes, as I forgot to do it, the music will go as well, so I'll bring that back down and put it back in place. The other thing I said I would do would slow this piece down, and you do that by going to this speed dial. If I click on that, there are options. You've got normal, slow, fast, etc. So if I go to slow, I tend to find that 10% pretty well does it. Now it does mean that any sound will get distorted when you slowed it down. So to stop that, you can turn the music off by just clicking and holding on the left of your mouse on this line, and if I drag it down, you'll see it disappears. So I'll have none of the video from the original, but just the music. So with that slowed down, right, that's probably enough of that. Now you can obviously, when you've slowed it down, you get more content to play with. So I'll just again do a split clip and remove the latter part of that particular piece, particularly as I've got this bit of the bay still tacked on. So what I can do then is decide how to cut across here. Now with this bit of music, you can do a number of things that would suit it, and one of those is how you transition from one piece of video to the next. And this one I like to use something called cross dissolve, this one here. So what I'll do is drag that over, drop that in, and you'll see that there is a fade across one to the other. So let's just see how that runs. Right, so it's mostly a static shot of the bass, so we need to use a reasonable amount. I'm going to take the sound off from the original recording again, but also try and find where there's a good point to cut between the two. So we'll go through. Feels about coming up here, so I'm going to again split that clip, take that piece out, and now because we've moved to this, we need to find a good point in the music to change the nature of the shot. I'll put in the transition here and just see how that runs. Well, that's quite good because you've got sound of feet on the path, but I'm talking there, and I'm just going to, I think, avoid that for this one. So if I split the clip here, I should take that out. Let's just hear that. So that's okay. Now I'm going to want to continue with this, but cut some of this out because I'm talking and it's not quite working there. So what I'll do is let this run. Force today. So we'll get ourselves further down towards the bay now because we've established the fact that we're walking down. So let's find somewhere where it's a bit more stable, a bit more level, and we can see the impressive sight. Seeing the beach road. Looks like the tide's in, I think. So we'll cut there. Now you see the music, or you'll hear the music has changed quite a lot there. So I'll have to work that in for a bit later because I've now got this and I've now got this, and I'm going to take the sound down again on this piece, add in the transition of cross dissolve, and we will work back through there. So we've got the walking with the footsteps. Right, a bit of sound on there, so I'll drop that back and make sure there's no speaking on that piece. So I've just trimmed both sides here and here to shorten that and hopefully avoid any talking. There's a bit there still, so we'll just tweak that and we'll see how this looks. Right, that's interesting because we start a shot around the base. I'm actually going to split it and get rid of all of that earlier section and just move straight to that piece of the bay. Still got some sound on there, so while I'm here I'm just quickly going to push this back a bit more so we avoid that. Should lose that now. I'm looking across the bay now. Right, so that's probably enough establishing that. So I'm going to take that one, rest of that one out, and we're now further down the path. Bring in the transition and then see what we get. I'm going to take the sound off this one because I want that to continue now with no background sound. So stop around there, split that again, take away that. Sometimes when people are walking it's quite good to have a slow motion effect, so I'm going to go back to that speed dial, back to slow, and you'll see that's put the tortoise on there, so that means I know it's slow motion, and decide where best to cut this. I think Caroline drops down a step in a second. We'll stop there. Oh, wait a minute, I think the music improves somewhere, or changes. So what we'll do, trim. Now the other way to shorten a piece of film is not to cut it, but just grab the end of the clip. You see those two arrows. If I hold down the left button on the mouse, it'll allow me just to take it back. So I'm going to pull that back and let Caroline just get down the step and change there. Put in a transition and see where we go. Now the sound on that unfortunately is a car, so we don't get much C sound, so I'm going to take that out as well. There's a good change there, but I noticed that this wobbles and you get a bit of shadow coming in, so again I'll change that to slow. Gives me much more to work with, and now I can decide how much I use and to hit that spot with the music change. Which is there. So if I just split that there, remove that, we'll get a music change as we look down the beach. Put in the cross dissolve. Now there might be some good C sound here, so I might leave that on. But let's just track back here, see if we get a good swap. So you see it's much smoother, there is a bit of wobble but it's taken out. Now that's slightly wrong there, so let's just see if I can move that along a little. It's a little bit early, so we'll allow a little bit more of that. Too bad, and as I said the C noise is quite nice, so I'll leave that in. Right, it's probably a bit too much of that, but I'll put in my transition and just decide how much of this we need. It's probably enough. I want to come back a bit, shorten that and just see how that works. You don't always have to cut the video on the music change. Sometimes it gets a bit too predictable, so mix and match. but there are some obvious points where it feels like you need to change the video, so keep an eye on that. And that's not a bad cut anyway. I'll bring that in. Let's see what we get here. So there's not too much to look at there, and it starts to move, so we'll trim it at that point, split the clip, highlight that and delete. Now this piece is I like, it's got a rising up from the little boat. It's just deciding how it fits best with the music. There's a bit of sound there which I think is a car in the background, but actually acts as quite a good sound effect, so I'm going to split it there. Now just because I've split this and taken it out doesn't mean I can't extend this back again. It doesn't actually go away, so should I need to start earlier or go later, that will work. So it's really just a question of deciding with this amount of video I've now got where best to cut. And that's a good point to cut, and that sound effect with the C is quite good as well. So let's split it there, cut that out, and we'll put that in there, see if that's worked. Slightly out, needs to be slightly longer I think. Try that. I've got talking there, so I'm going to again take the sound down, run that through. Bit of a wobble there, so what I'm going to do is wait for that to steady, split it there and take out all that wobbling. Bring that here now. It's a bit more stable now and looks better. It does, that's reasonably good cut point anyway. So we'll take that and put that there. Yeah. So that starts to move round. Does it go far enough? Yeah, there's a fair bit of that. So what we'll do, come back to when it starts to move, just running that along, about there, split and delete that first part, and that should work quite well. I think I might take the sound off that. It doesn't sound too good. I think we've seen enough of that, and the music sounds like it wants to change. So I'm going to take that out, knowing that I can always move some of this through. I'm going to put in my cross dissolve ready. I think I'll take the sound off this one and just see how that works with the music edit. That's nice. So we've worked out that Caroline's walking up there, so I'm going to split it there, knowing I've got the second shot when she's further up. Put in that, and we'll see how we go. Right, there's a natural point there where it should really be the changeover. So what I'm going to do, I think, is bring that further forward and see if that works better. There's a little bit of a jarring there. You'll also find when the program's first running, sometimes these transitions don't fully work. They become a bit juddery, but they do tend to smooth themselves out after a little while. So we've got that cut there. I'm going to bring the sound down again. Have we got, it's one of, there's too much of the walking up the stairs. Let's have a look. It does establish the fact that, right, it does tend to move just at the end. So plan B, go back to the speed, slow it down. Now I can decide where best to use that particular section. Right, there's the cut. You can see that on the music there where it rises. So what I'll do is cut that there, take all that off, and we'll get that cut, but now it might not be such an odd split. Yep, that works for the first time. Right, don't need to see too much of that because we just established that positioning. So what I'll now do, put in this transition. Now we're coming to the top. And we're walking through here, got a fair bit of wobble. So again, I think I might use the trick of slowing it down. So I'm going to cut it out there anyway, because we seem to have got quite a lot of that. And take away the sound, because on slow motion it will distort it. And we'll go back to slightly slower. Go back to the start of that clip. Here we go. And just decide how much to use. So I think probably need a bit more of the beginning of that, because I think doesn't go too far, so we need a little bit of a transition, a bit of movement. So I'm going to come back a bit, start it earlier, but then finish it sooner in there. So you get the idea of removing. So we'll cut that. I can always extend or shorten that in readiness for this shot. So we'll cut through, leave the sound of the sea in. So that works roughly. So what I'm going to do now is just choose a place to delete, just for the purposes of this. What you can do then at the end is fade to black, but also to make that more of a gentle fade, because I think you'll find it's quite harsh. It goes very quickly. If you left click on here and then right click, you'll see something called Show Precision Editor. Click on that and it gives you this bar here, but also you can see the color change. And if you're able to do this, stretch that out, then close the editor again, you'll get a longer fade, which can be a bit gentler, so it's not quite so harsh. And the last thing to do on this section is to trim the music. Now, I found you can't trim the music here, it doesn't give the option of splitting the clip, but if you go back to where it's underneath the video and then put split clip, you can do it. So you can then delete, making sure this yellow box is highlighted, the music, and then stretch it back out again and decide where you're going to fade it out. How you do a fade is to take this little button here and just drag it left. Find if you do a long fade, it seems to work better. And then it's really just down to listening and deciding how you want that to work. So let's try that. So it probably doesn't need to be quite as long as that, so I'm going to put it there. And we'll run that. That's fine for the purposes of this demonstration. So now we have got the whole thing running with some underlying sound effects and also some music changes. So the only thing I tend then to want to do is to give it a bit of a starting title. If you go into titles, you get all these different versions, and I've used a few, but the one I favour for the start is this one, Centered. If you left click on it and drag it to the front, it'll sit on top here. It'll also push the whole video and music back, so then you can happily type in here. So we'll call this Sennen Cove Edit 1. I'm going to change the typeface. Again, you can do that here. Just click on there and choose. The one I tend to use is this one, and it seems to automatically put this outlining on here. So if you take that off, it makes it much clearer. Click outside the box to sort of save it and store it in there, and there you've got it. So now you've got a title, obviously with no sound, and then it starts. I think I might transition that again with the dissolve. And what I've started to do is put a little bit of sound which relates more to what the video is about. So in this case, obviously by the sea. So you could either get a bit of sound effect, or another way to do it if you particularly like or you've got the sound. I think somewhere there's probably something good with a bit of seagulls or sound. It's just that's people talking. I think let's try that. Try that one. Ah, there you go. Plenty of sea there. So just by way of example, what you can then do is drag that to the point there. But if you then click on that to the right, you'll see there's another option which is detach audio. So if you do that, you now have the video and the audio separated, which means then you can drag that under your title. Then if you then go back to the video, which has no audio now, and delete that, you'll see you've got the remaining audio all the way along there. So I can now cut that just where it finishes and delete this old part of the audio. And now coming under here, I will have some seaside effects. That works quite well. The only thing was it was a bit abrupt in terms of the way it finished. So I'm going to fade that out and let that fade into the music. There we go. Right, well that's that completed. I'll just review the footage and make sure it all works okay, and then put that on the end of the video. And then one of the things I think is particularly important, the way I like to put a video together, is how you use the music. So you've seen how much I've put together on this version, but what I'll do next, and just to show you how music can have such an impact on how your videos look, I'll take exactly the same sequence of shots and put a different style of music on it. I'll probably have to make some tweaks then to the length of certain shots and other little techniques, but basically it'll be the same video but with very different music, and we'll see how different it comes across. Okay, so hopefully you've enjoyed that, found it useful. If you do, please give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. We do welcome and appreciate all the support we get, and I'll just say bye for now and see you again soon. Bye everyone, bye.